Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Hannah Steer. I'm a physiatrist in Boston, and I'm joined here with my colleagues from the International Rehab Forum, or IRF. And we are delighted to have the opportunity to share our work and experience building global rehab medicine throughout the globe through the International Rehab Forum. Thank you so much for the invitation to speak from our esteemed colleagues at CANOSC, Drs. Rajiv Rebai, Paul Winston, and Heather Dow. We hope to inspire some thoughtful discussion and new ideas about global rehab medicine, and hope you learn about our insights and experiences through the IRF. So thank you for joining us. Here are our disclosures, and our learning objectives today are understanding the current state of PM&R services in low and middle income countries with a focus on sub-Saharan Africa. The second objective is to learn more about what we do. So what's the role of the International Rehab Forum in advancing PM&R globally? And also, hopefully, we share some knowledge on how to develop practical strategies for building and strengthening PM&R in low middle income countries, with the focus on our approach to building capacity, improving care, and addressing resource constraints. With that, I will turn this over to our founder and president, Dr. Andy Haig. Thank you.
Great. Hey, everybody. Yes, I'm Andy Haig, professor of physical medicine and rehabilitation at the University of Michigan, now emeritus. This is a picture of the Rusk medal. Howard Rusk was the father of rehab medicine beginning after World War II. And at one point, the World Rehab Fund was in over 100 countries. The medal was given by Howard Rusk on his deathbed, more or less, to Jim Swenson, who was the father of rehab in the western part of the United States. And when Jim was pretty old, couldn't walk well and blind, Jim gave this to me. And it's a heavy weight that I think we carry as an organization to carry on the work of Howard Rusk. I started out when Tom and I and others got interested in this, looking for where we could help out. And by the time we looked, Rusk's World Rehab Fund was essentially bankrupt. At that point, the International Society of PM&R, which is a very good organization now, had no members from Africa or India or any other countries who didn't pay their dues. Doctors Without Borders, one of my European friends called it Doctors Without Rehab after they had her passing out immunizations instead of using her skills. The Red Cross is really important, does great things, but they're not there in the long term. And rehab starts with an emergency and goes on in the long term. So they weren't really doing what we do. And a lot of the rehab charities that you take a look at who've done things for decades, thankfully, have been taken over by people with disabilities. Nothing for us except for by us. However, in doing that, they pretty much jettisoned the medical aspects of things. So the little piece of what we have to offer, which is being doctors, was kind of a sidebar, not a main focus of many of these organizations. So I came at this from a background where I'm a PM&R doc, got some credibility as a researcher, and then I got adopted by a guy named Noel Tichy, who's one of the world's great leadership experts in corporations. And so I said, gosh, well, we've got some credibility and we know how to build leadership. We have no money. We don't know the resource countries. But fortunately, I had this brother, Tom of mine. We've been crazy together. And after his spinal cord injury, Tom and I really realized that we just had to do something. So our strategy was not, let's go build another Red Cross. We're little, we're not there. It's more like, well, we got to shine a light on the problem so other people do things. We need to look at the people who can lead and teach them how to be stronger leaders. We need to do some research. We need to get the facts together in a way that's credible so that people act on it. Most of all, because we're a little organization, we need to just do stuff. We're more nimble than anybody else. And then finally, we have to be very humble in what we're doing. We're not trying to build some empire. If somebody else can do it better, we've got our job done, hand it over to someone else. So examples, this is a table from one of the papers we published, and it looks at the number of rehab doctors per 10 million people in Africa and Antarctica. What happens to this? It's published in 5 international journals simultaneously, showing that there are only 6 rehab doctors in all of sub-Saharan Africa at the time, right? Change World Health Organization policies. When you do this kind of work, the world really does change. Leadership, Farouk was one of the first people we identified as a really talented, strong young leader. As a resident in Pakistan, he and his friends responded to the earthquake and had incredible data and didn't think they were important enough to write papers. So we wrote some papers. If you fast forward a few years ago, Farouk himself got the author a top mentor in all of science in all of low research countries because he's now mentoring young Pakistani doctors in rehab medicine. When you look at research, you want to find out how many people have disability in a country and they have 30 different languages, 50% literacy. You have to get rid of things like the Barthel Index, which is in English, and mimic it with a video game. So we did this. We've now used it on 4 different continents, and it's actually better than the Barthel Index in measuring what the functional abilities are of children and other people. And the don't wait, just do it is kind of a really important thing for a little nimble organization like ours. Our fellowship, you'll hear about quite a bit. It's an important example. Tom's work in other countries is like, my gosh, this just needs to happen. Let's do it. We looked around the United States and Canada and said, there's really not an academic home for the people who want to be academic global rehab peoples. So we built it, and we have a young leaders group, and we've had a couple of meetings of that group. A best example here is, Africans are really good at pandemics. So we're sitting with our African fellows, realizing this pandemic's coming. And in the first month of the pandemic, we made the first big call to action. We wrote the very first tools to screen and treat. Some of these have now published, and actually built a long COVID strategy in that very first month, which we couldn't actualize because COVID went on for 2 more years. But the team knew what had to happen. We've got world congresses that we run, and this year in Cartagena, you'll hear more about that. So if you, and I guess the example of giving it up to somebody else is our meeting in Kayseri, where we actually launched the field of disaster rehab, which is now the most popular committee on the International Society. Finally, the last slide, please. The real mission that I have for the organization is for us to build a leadership engine. This is my friend Noel Tichy from the Michigan Business School. And we really need to build a leadership engine where everybody in the program is leading other people and doing it competently. And finally, we need to build a process where this thing is being handed off to the people that you see on the computer and other people that I hope join us. So the real challenge for the organization is to sustain itself with the same mission and the same vision that we have now. I'll turn it over to my friends. Unmute.
Hey, everybody, I'm Tom. You'll notice I don't have any fancy letters at the end of my name. That is because I'm not a medical practitioner. I'm, in fact, a consumer. I am a paraplegic. I have a burst fracture at the 12th thoracic vertebrae, which has put me in a chair. I started the IRF probably about 5 or 6 years after that. And then about 3 years after that, I had the idea of going to visit clinics all over the world and in low resource areas to film them. I returned to school, went to the Murrow College at Washington State University. You can see it's very hilly. It gets very snowy there. After 2.5 very rough years, I finished that and we started going out filming. So the first place where we really got the project going was at our global conference in Kayseri, Turkey, where I met these 3 principal figures that really helped the project going. Dr. Germano Pastelli is the past president of the Italian Society of PM&R. He's literally worked in every country in the world setting up clinics. He helped me get established in some places. Devendra Peer, who just passed away, was the former treasurer of the IRF. He helped me finance things with plane tickets and just his general knowledge of the way things work globally. And Gifty Gianti is a PhD professor at Corley Teaching Hospital in physical therapy. And she helped me get established in Ghana. First place we filmed was in Bangladesh, and this was at our IRF BS PMR, Bangladesh Society of PM&R conference in Dhaka. When I was in college, I had a name, Captain Crip, and so we started filming using these series as Captain Crip. We switched it to IRF Films, but our first film was in Dhaka, and we just filmed the conference and just did a little kind of travelogue thing about what it's like to be at a medical conference in Dhaka. One of the most important things at the conference was met Dr. Raju Dakal. He's the only practicing physiatrist in all of Nepal. And you'll see soon that he was essential in getting one of the IRF the biggest IRF films project going in Kathmandu. 2013, we started this tour, took us all around the world. Started out in France. I was living in France at the time, and had a sport club. We did handbike, we did skiing, there was fencing, there was all sorts of stuff. So I did a short little 7-minute video on that. After that, I hooked up with Dr. Pastelli, went to Shkodër, Albania for 3 weeks. And we interviewed paraplegics, interviewed physical therapists. We got to interview the mayor of Shkodër. The Minister of Health for Albania gave us some time and cobbled together this really pretty extensive video about the state of disability awareness and PM&R, almost non-existent state in Albania. From Albania, flew to Ghana, where I hooked up with Gifty, and spent a month in Ghana, traveling all over the country. Ghana has the most advanced disability organization in the world. It's amazing. The Ghanaian Society for the Physically Disabled. Every little town in Ghana, every little village has a chapter of the GDSP or GDPS. They also have been able to get 2% of all taxable income in Ghana goes to disability programs. So even I went to the furthest north town in Ghana, region Garu. There were 12 people in their disability organization, and all 12 of them were employed, which is just absolutely something you never hear of. The next big project we did was 2 years later. There were massive earthquakes in Nepal, and our friend Raju, we got in contact with him, and he was like asking us to raise funds, so we did. And then he asked me to come over about 5 months after and things cleared up. His hospital, the Spinal Injury Rehabilitation Center, just outside Cat, had 100 brand new spinal cord patients in 2 weeks for a hospital with 40 beds. So they were doing triage in the parking lot under tents that the Pakistan Army gave them. I got there and I started pulling out my camera and we started filming. He wanted me just to be a peer counselor, and I was like, I can't do that. I need to work. So we started filming, and we filmed every department, every little subject we could think of, from nursing to physical therapy to hydrotherapy. We also got involved with the disability community in Kathmandu, really extensive. And we filmed things like the Kathmandu Wheelchair Basketball League, the Kathmandu Ping Pong League, one of the mental health centers. In the end, we had 30 short little documentary films, and it really established the SIRC as an international rehabilitation center. In doing these projects, I ended up discovered that the patients that were doing vocational programs did not care for the vocational programs. They loved doing film. Every time we pulled out the cameras, we'd get a crowd. I would use them for actors, use them, obviously the professionals would do the lecture, but we needed patients to act. Really loved it, taught them how to edit. And I was like, this is the best vocational program for people in chairs. So 2 years later, with contacts, found myself at the Centre Talibou Dabo in Dakar, Senegal. This is Dakar's biggest disability school. I was funded, got a bunch of people, gave me cameras, lighting equipment, sound equipment, and started teaching the kids at the school how to produce videos. And they took to it like wildfire, to the point where the other teachers were kind of jealous because they had to teach math and I was teaching movies. But really, really went well. The same time, the woman I was living in her house, she was teaching at a different place, the Centre Hospitalier de l'Ordre de Malte, which is West Africa's leading rehabilitation or leprosy rehabilitation center. And they also had a vocational program that was on it. It was boring. And I came there with cameras and stuff. And this was for an adult class. And they really took to this like wildfire. And we ended up shooting 13 videos on every subject, from nursing to pharmacy to surgery. All the heads of each department of each hospital pitched in, and we documented. I think it's the most comprehensive documentation of leprosy rehab ever done. So, case of filming really helping out the medical staff.
Thank you so much, Tom and Andy. Just to introduce myself, I'm Hannah Steer. I'm a physiatrist in Boston, and I was lucky enough to meet Andy my last year of residency and became involved in the IRF. And I'm here to present on the IRF Africa Fellowship with Dr. Una Sinsky, who was there from the fellowship's inception. So she's going to begin and then I will follow up.
Thank you, Hannah. Everybody, I'm Una, and I'm the Director of Global Outreach of IRF. I actually, as Hannah mentioned, I got involved as a third-year medical student, so back in 2017. So if you're watching, if you're a medical student, resident watching, just know that it's never too early to get involved for a project that you're passionate about. So let's talk about I wanted to feature this paper that was published by one of our very first fellowship graduates, Dr. Tanner, who's also here to give the talk with us as well. And these are basically the list of official and unofficial PM&R training programs. And I wanted to highlight Ghana and Ethiopia, as those are the two countries that our original fellows are from. If you see, the training year started in 2018. And if you think about how PM&R started in the US in 1947 and Canada in 1952, you can see that there's a huge lag of approximately 70 years. So our fellowship program, the main goal is to, of course, promote knowledge and skills in the field of PM&R, but also to create a collaborative network locally in the continent of Africa and also globally around the world. Our longer goal is to create a local PM&R training program that matches the local culture and needs directly. And of course, all of us in physiatry together look to promote the quality of life and social inclusion of people with disability globally. Our fellowship beginnings, we started in 2018 with our 4 fellows initially, and our fellows were actually attending physicians of family medicine, orthopedics, and neurology. So these are established attendings who are interested in rehab. And then we were able to graduate our first batch in 2020, and then our second batch in 2022. And currently we are in our third kind of cycle of fellowship. And we have grown significantly and currently have the largest class yet of 25 fellows. To review the fellowship design, it's a 2-year fellowship with a combination structured of pre-recorded lectures, online live lectures, and later on in-person local rotations, and then global rotations, mainly here in the North America, US, and Canada. We kind of changed our lecture style over time, and I'll present the initial one. We normally had about 2-hour structures weekly. It could be the same day, it could be different days, depending on the time. And we would go over initial lecture style and then also do journal clubs and also case presentations as well. And I'll switch it over to Dr. Steer.
Thank you, Dr. Sinsky. So as Dr. Sinsky mentioned, the fellowship kind of delivery methods have changed a lot in a short period of time. We're really working to meet the needs of fellows and also create a rigorous kind of standardized fellowship. So we've evolved over the past few years, and part of it is also evolving with the COVID times and technology changes. So this kind of current iteration of the fellowship is has changed a bit. So we still have this kind of asynchronous learning where fellows watch 1-hour lectures prior to attending the live sessions. And then we expanded from 1 hour to 3 hours of live meeting time. So our hour 1 is still this expert lecturer, typically from the US or Canada, who comes in and does either cases or a short presentation and Q&A. And then we got a bit more creative for hours 2 and 3. We have 25 fellows now, so we have the human power to turn over some of the fellowship to them. You know, we're turning this over to very capable and talented leaders, and we all learn from them as well. And so they are each assigned as chief of the month and lead fellows in an hour of case discussions, and also recruit their own experts from their regions to talk about more region-specific kind of rehab. So it's a really nice time for them to kind of brainstorm together and network and discuss PM&R from their perspectives. So that delivery method has evolved. We are also evolving in terms of how we use virtual learning platforms in the fellowship. Right now we're on Zoom and we're on Google Docs and we're on email, and there's a lot of different pieces floating around, and we really want a virtual home. So thanks to our friend, Dr. Leanne Snow at the University of Minnesota, we now have access to Canvas, which is a virtual learning platform where we can house all of our resources. So this is just a screenshot of what we have so far, where we have these different topics listed. And then if I zoom into a topic, say traumatic brain injury, the fellows can see that for each week there are slides for lectures, there will be videos, and then we also have more interactive pieces like quizzes where they can track their own learning and their learning as well. And eventually this will also have a discussion board for them to comment on. And Miriam Chun will be talking about more platforms later on in the talk. So what is the content of our curriculum based on? So it's loosely based on the ISPRM core curriculum and competencies published in 2019. So these competencies were based off of survey data used to establish minimum requirements for PM&R trainings. And these were established based on the rapid evolution of our field in PM&R. And as ISPRM recognizes, there's a wide variety in practice and available resources across various regions. So this curriculum is not intended to impose compulsory curriculums on training programs, but rather to provide a framework. So that's what we use. And of course, we do have limitations. We're limited by time, and we all have full-time jobs. The fellows all have full-time jobs. There's some lack of hands-on learning. Most of this is virtual, although they do have their local rotations, which Dr. Abhina Tanner touches on later in the talk. And our speakers are also volunteers. So we can't always ask them to develop their talk based off of the curriculum. Oftentimes they have their own canned lectures that they give, and we kind of adapt for our curriculum. So this is a figure that Miriam Chun made. It's, I think, really, really nice, and gives a good way to picture how we are trying to empower local physicians to build PM&R. So on the left-hand side, we have our kind of virtual learning platform that we do. In the middle, we have this peer networking and global networking that we do through our fellowship, through conferences and more, through CANOSC. And then we also have on the right-hand side, this more hands-on learning that fellows do. So this is just a brief few slides here on a survey of a prior fellows' experiences. This is an N of 3, so it's very small, but we'll have more participants later on. But this is a question asking, how did your knowledge improve in the following subspecialties after the fellowship? And unfortunately, all of these were improved. There were no changes or worsening in knowledge, and certain areas did better than others. And then we also asked them, how helpful have each of the following formats been for your learning? And you can see here what they all thought. Pre-recorded videos, live lectures, and case discussion seem to be the most helpful. And just to touch on one of these things, the WhatsApp group that you see on the right-hand side, we do have a WhatsApp group where we can talk about cases or conferences, and we also tried to develop specific WhatsApp groups for each subspecialty, like cancer rehab. And what we realized was that if you're not sort of breathing life into these over time, then they tend to die out. So not everything has worked, and we're also learning from that as well. And this was a question, how much do you agree that the following were barriers to your learning? And the big theme that came up here was a lack of in-person rehab, not enough funding, especially to do rotations abroad, and a lack of local support. And this fellowship class, just to note, was through COVID, so it was really challenging to find them rotations abroad. And then the fellows also wrote in comments on how we can improve the fellowship. And again, a major theme was, how do they get more clinical exposure to rehab medicine, we need to establish in-person rotations early for them. Typically, again, these happen abroad, and then additional time for the weekly meeting, which we've done. So generally, our goal with the fellowship is to have this virtual learning, but also establish more in-person hands-on learning. And ultimately, you know, we hope to turn this fellowship over to the docs in Africa, and so that they can create their own, you know, Africa-centric rehab programs. And we are here to help aid them in that. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my esteemed colleague, Dr. Avana Tanner. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Hannah. So I'm Abina Tano. I'm one of the first fellows, as mentioned earlier on, currently consulting with the WHO, but also directing the program in Africa. Okay, so as previously mentioned, before the Ghana had the IRF training, that was in 2018. There was basically just PT, physical therapy, and orthotics and prosthetics as the rehab specialties in Ghana. And before then, so we didn't have any occupational therapy or speech therapy, no PM&R physicians. There were only 16 physiotherapy centers with just the basic equipment being run by trained physiotherapists. And then there was also the orthopedic training center, which had on-the-job trained orthotists and prosthetists. And both these services had inpatient and outpatient care. And so before then, our founder, Andy Hay, had tried a number of times to be able to start PM&R in Ghana. There were a lot of challenges, but I think that it was good because there was this research to prove that there weren't any PM&R physicians. And also there was research exploration and the curriculum, research exploration through the Ghana College of Physicians and Surgeons. And then eventually we had to develop a curriculum. And the curriculum took some time, almost a year, to be able to be accepted or adopted by the Ghana College of Physicians and Surgeons. And eventually, as mentioned, I went through the training and then graduated in 2020. Currently, we have 4 fellows in training who are also teaching medical students, because we want to be able to expose them to the field of PM&R so that they are also coming on board to be trained. So the structure, as I mentioned, it's mainly run by the International Rehab Forum in collaboration with the Ghana College of Physicians and Surgeons. The college wanted to also run a sports medicine program, so it was in combination. So currently the program is called a Sports Exercise and Rehab Medicine Fellowship Program, 2-year program following what the IRF has developed. And for us in Ghana, the entry point, you have to be a board certified family physician, not directly out of medical school, because we want there to be some background or training, more advanced training in medicine, and also looking at the fact that family medicine is more linked to PM&R. So there's the online lectures, the in-person visits by PM&R physicians from outside the country. And then the fellows are mandated. There's actually a logbook where they have to go through clinical rotations in the specialties that are affiliated to PM&R. So we're looking at neurology, neurosurgery, trauma and orthopedics and the likes, so that they are able to better understand and also build on their training. And then there's the external rotation. Also, there's a mandatory research component where before you graduate, you need to have done a dissertation or conducted research, presented and passed your dissertation, and then also mandatory training in health administration and management to be able to help them become leaders of PM&R or rehab in Ghana. So the impact, I must say that it's been great. It's been wonderful and amazing. Through the IRF and the institution of this program, we've had over 1,500 patients who received PM&R, and we actually recorded this over a 2-year period in a hospital setting. And we've also realized that to get more patients to access this care, we needed to do community outreach. So we usually would have community divers take them through the impact or the importance of PM&R. And also looking at the fact that Ghana is a low to middle income country and we don't have access to a lot of these assistive products that buttress or complement the provision of PM&R, we've looked at innovating. So we've come out with a foot brace with devices to help with driving in collaboration with the driver vehicle and licensing authority. So that people who have disabilities can also drive if possible. And also one of our biggest advocacy methods has been to give lectures and present at conferences as well, so that more health workers can come on board and support the field of PM&R, and also more physicians can also engage in it. So the challenges, there have been a couple of challenges, obviously having more trainers because this is a program that is beginning, and also having the bed space and equipment. Luckily for us, it's been good that we have more physicians who are also leaders in their hospital. So one of our fellows is actually has established a rehab unit in his hospital because he's leading that hospital, and also being able to get training sponsorships. So currently, to be able to enroll in the program, you have to be sponsored by the health facility in which you work. And we know that with every new thing, change comes with some form of resistance. So we had a few challenges in terms of multidisciplinary team dynamics from other rehab professionals, but we've been able to overcome that as they have seen the important role of PM&R in the whole rehab setting. And also acceptance and collaboration with other medical specialties. But currently, most of our referrals have been coming from orthopedics and trauma. We've had referrals from neurology, neurosurgery, so that has been really good. The challenges are gradually being overcome. It's taking time, but we're getting there. So the way forward, I think that for any country that wants to be able to institute PM&R should have someone who is dedicated to lead it in the country. There should be support from the host hospital, from colleagues, from the government, and especially money. There's a need for financial support as well. And lastly, research. We need to be able to document how we've come about in establishing the challenges we've gone through, the successes as well, so that others who come can understand and can also emulate that, and also use it as an advocacy method also to get more stakeholders involved. So I'll hand over, thank you, to Emina.
Thank you, Dr. Tanner. I'm Dr. Mary Elizabeth Nelson. I am an assistant professor and full-time provider at the Medical College of Wisconsin, and I am the program director for research of the IRF Board of Directors. Dr. Tanner mentioned that some of the challenges to implementing rehabilitation is a lack of trainers, a lack of space and equipment, the need for acceptance, not only the medical community, but the community as a whole, the need for experts in country, and a lack of support for rehabilitation. So one way forward to address these challenges is through the dissemination of knowledge through research and writing. And so the IRF seeks to improve the access to rehabilitation care in the low resource regions, promote best practices in rehabilitation, and to enhance the knowledge of our fellows and key stakeholders. One method that we do this through is through the inclusion of research, not only in our training program, but through creating research in these regions and these needs, and then the dissemination of the knowledge through professional writing across all of our activities here at the IRF. Some previous work that's been done to identify the unmet need is in some of these papers that you see here, as well as many others. And we were able to identify the unmet need through the identification of the populations that are underserved, as well as the need for workforce and access to care. This slide you've already seen the data from Dr. Szynski and Dr. Steers talk, but it talks to lack of data on current state of populations, as well as more importantly to the immense need that we had due to a low number of physicians trained in rehabilitation, thus creating that trickle-down effect of no access for patients. So this is just one example of where research can be very useful in trying to grow the support necessary in order to implement new programs. So not only do we participate in research and dissemination of that research, but the IRF also participates in different means of communicating out to our stakeholders. So we work through the dissemination through posters and abstracts presented not only at local, but also at regional and international conferences, such as some of our abstracts here that were presented at the ISPRM in previous years. We do have publications that we work on and disseminate regarding our programs and the challenges, just like this program that we're doing today to all of you, not only through virtual outreach, but also through journals such as the papers shown here in the Frontiers of Rehabilitation Science. And then we have ongoing data collection on knowledge gaps of our fellows and trainees. And then we will be working on publishing that information later to try to gather more support for rehabilitation training programs. Additionally, the IRF has been accepted as one of the WHO's World Rehabilitation Alliance members. And for those of you that are not familiar with the World Rehabilitation Alliance, it is a group that the WHO has formed of stakeholders internationally, NGOs, universities, to promote, the mission is to promote and support implementation of the Rehabilitation 2030 initiatives through advocacy activities. So this alliance has multiple different work groups. 3 of the work group and work streams we have been accepted into, and we have different members of the IRF participating in on a monthly basis. For research, it is myself and Dr. Haig. For primary care, it is Dr. Ejebon and Dr. Haig. And for workforce, it's Dr. Kwao and Dr. Haig. And we do work with different international members trying to promote implementation of Rehab 2030. Objective 1 is to conduct evidence-based advocacy activities to increase not only the awareness, but to create support, and then to strengthen networking and knowledge sharing within the rehabilitation sector. The goal is to encourage investment in health systems and rehabilitation, improve access to care, and improve the workforce development. So why do we care about all the research? Well, it's all the reasons that I've talked about, but it's equally important not only to know what we do know, but also what we don't know. By including what we don't know, we can really enhance programs and enhance access to care. We're talking about regions across the globe, and regions across the globe have different needs. They have different resources. They have different cultural expectations. They have different environments. So doing research multinationally is very important so that we create programs and support programs that are created locally in order to enhance the care of patients worldwide. There's scientific knowledge regarding rehabilitation, but we don't always know how to implement it. So as a component of the IRF fellowship, as was explained earlier, we have our fellows engaging in research that is relevant to rehabilitation, as well as professional writing. And that's paramount to discovering knowledge, disseminating ideas and outcomes, and documenting need for the programs. We really want to encourage participation in grounded, bottoms-up type research and data collection for decision makers. And then our ongoing work is to integrate research and publication, and that will continue and expand as we engage more of our members and more of our stakeholders and promote the work and efforts for our fellows across the globe. I think I can turn this over to Miriam Chun, our Executive Director.
Okay, so I'll end our presentation with the future direction, and I hope this will inspire you to get involved with IRF and help us achieve our goals. So we talked about all the exciting work we do, but where exactly are we going with all this? So we act as a platform, and here we see the IRF's ARC, a safe space for people to come together and share ideas, collaborate, or just connect with each other with a common goal. And our goal is to make rehabilitation medicine accessible in low resource and isolated communities. And there are various factors around us that boost us or delays or block us to get to this ultimate goal here. And many of our short-term or long-term projects have to deal with or solve these factors. First, we need to be on the same page about why we exist. And IRF's mission is to bring the passionate people together to get the job done. And to do that, our work focuses on these 4 areas. We train, we organize, we train, we inspire, and we respond. And by doing these 4 focus areas, we are connecting and global leaders who will act as the catalyst, the ultimate driver for creating new initiatives and new healthcare paradigms to include rehab medicine in low resource areas. And all of our work wouldn't be possible without the support of our incredible, passionate constituents at the IRF. The board members that you saw today, the fellows and the volunteers and the donors, I wanted to really recognize them here today. The level of their dedication and focus are so enormous. It is so inspiring to see how we get things done. So it's just such a privilege to be connected to these wonderful people and to support the vision that we can all work together. And hopefully we'll see many of you, your faces here in the near future as well. Okay, so our short-term goals. 1 is to bring out powerful change stories. When I first joined IRF, Andy and Tom, I was immediately struck by their warmth and respectful culture they built, where I felt so valued. This precious culture makes anyone feel like they can lead, and it is a huge asset and legacy we have at the IRF. And we want to continue to foster this where everyone feels empowered to share their stories as they make differences in their team, in their care system, and even in their country. So far, we spent all of our energy laying the groundwork for cultivating pioneers like our Africa Fellows. But ultimately, our mission is to see the active change in their health system. And we believe their stories are essential to build momentum for that transformation. With 4 countries, 6 alumni, and 25 fellows, you can imagine how much of a diverse communities that we are connected to. And these communities have very different barriers and resiliences, but they also intersect and relate to one another. So their stories are the critical mechanisms to inspire and create a shared sense of purpose. So we'll solidify various channels like our YouTube, research papers, meetings, etc., to broadcast all of their stories. And guess what? In 2 months, we are co-hosting a meeting at the IRS, co-hosting a meeting with CARF at this year's IRS-PRM meeting. And you can scan a QR code here to see more of our program, amazing program that we have. And if you do plan to attend ISPRM, we really want to see all of you guys there. So please check out our website, rehabforum.org. And we really want to see you guys there. The second goal, we are building an online open community to engage our network. So we want to use interactive app where people can share their updates quickly. So we are currently testing this online community chat rooms using Slack with our Africa Fellows. And our goal is to expand this arena to much larger network that we have. And finally, and not the least, our third goal is that we have is to build resources that can drive our mission. So there are many ways you can partner with us and create impactful projects. You can volunteer and contribute your time and skills. You can donate to support our programs like sponsoring our lectures or sponsoring our fellows to attend meetings. Or we can have much bigger discussions like multi-year strategic and visionary partnerships together that we can with our shared goals. So please visit the rehabforum.org and scan the QR code with your phone to sign up to get more information about our organization, the updates, and volunteer opportunities. So we hope to get connected to you, and so please sign up, and thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you.